everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by Mana Traders, as well as Twitch subs and Patreon supporters just like you. My name is Evan Irwin, and get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Power Dragon.
What's up, everybody? I think it's about time we got to start getting our summer shape on, man. It's almost here.
Got to get moving and grooving for that
right.
beach bod. Ruben Bressler, speaking of summer shirts.
Yeah, I needed to get into summer shape, but I guess we all eventually become crabs. So this is always my summer shape.
I peach. Now, if you missed our pre-show, patrons get access to that extended version right after this one. We kick it off with our first pick, as always, and Wizards. Surprisingly, unsurprisingly, we kind of caught it last week because they said, "Hey, May 10th is going to be like a Pioneer showcase," and we're like, "Wait a minute." Pioneer doesn't exist on Magic Arena. Well, it's gonna, because on May 10th, that's what, 3 days from now or so?
Yep, this weekend.
Yeah, they are going to be doing the Prominent Pioneer is going to be a new title for people. People are being weird about trying to get the Explorer titles before they run out. Have you heard about this?
No.
Yeah.
People are going on playing 2 cards or something and then leaving so they can get the games played to tick up, and that's it.
It's for one of the achievements, I think. You get the little title under your name. So there's one for Explorer, but it's going to change.
But it's going to go away.
Pioneer. Yeah.
Sure.
So if you have it, you will get the new one.
I love that.
But
that's a great thing to go do.
Yeah, but if you're already missing it, you can only earn the new one.
Right. So that's the whole thing. But I'll bring it up on the screen here so we can check it out a little bit. But yeah, the idea that Pioneer has been coming to Magic Arena, it's been a long time coming. We've talked about this, I think, for at least a year and a half, maybe longer. They introduced Explorer in 2022, and so here we are 3 years later. And they've also they're not going to have every single card in Explorer, or in Pioneer rather. The number I saw was something like over 2,000 cards, but if all of those 2,000 cards are just limited draft fodder or just worse versions of other stuff, then it doesn't really matter. To finalize the change, they're going to add 11 new to Magic Arena cards to the game, including fun ones like Battle at the Bridge, Borderless Enraged. I know it's a big one that was missing. Sure. Warping Whale, for example, was another one that was missing. And just other stuff like Triton Shore Stalker, the 1-mana, 1/1 unblockable.
Sure.
It's fine, and there's going to be
do whatever. Roast is one people have been waiting for.
Right. Well, we just got a new Roast, though.
Yeah.
I guess it's not the same.
Right.
The new Dragon Roast.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and remember the name Borderless Enraged with Pithy Needle.
Right.
As the title. But, and Sanctum of Ugin, stuff like that. They still don't have some of the Eldrazi, for example. But that's not the end of the world. Like Reality Smasher, for example, isn't on there. But I'm sure they'll add it later. But there are going to be a showcase event that you can play in starting on May 10th, and that gives you one of the new cards. It is going to feel really weird that at one point you get Borderless Enraged, and the next point you get Triton Shore Stalker as your you know what I mean? Like, this is your gift for entering the thing. Like, thanks. Could have just crafted that common, and maybe you should. But Rakdos Charm I know people are very excited about, because lots of people make tokens in Brawl and other formats. Yeah. And you're just like, take it. It's what you get. But I'll take all things that get Pioneer on the client sooner than later. I'm very excited about that as well. So let's get
it was a neat idea. It's kind of interesting, the approach they sound like they're taking is that we're going to keep monitoring events, and if something pops up that we need on the client, we'll make it available. So you can have true Pioneer on Arena. But there's a lot of junk here, so we'll just wait for the junk to become prominent before we spend time putting it on the client, which, again, it's a lot of cards, so it's kind of hard to blame them, especially if a lot of it's just going to be wasted programming time because nobody's ever going to use it. But yeah, people who play Pioneer should be pretty happy about this.
Yeah, this and so alongside this Pioneer announcement, which is great, I appreciate it, which is awesome. There's another announcement they came out with the very same day, which needs to be lauded. It needs to be pointed out how cool this was for them, because they didn't have to do this. And Lord knows we've lived in a world where they haven't done this for many years. The Arena reprint and card style improvements. This is awesome. They're doing, with 3 major goals: player-friendly reprints, intuitive customization, and worry-free collecting. They really, centered on some pain points. Like, for example, when you would open a special guest fetch land, well, then you can only run 1 of the special guest fetch land because that's all you open. You already had 4 from your Modern Horizons, 3 or whatever. But now you got this one special guest. Well, that kind of sucks. And you're going to have 3 of one and 1 of the other. Trust me, I know, because I've got some of those like that. And now you can just use any of the printings that you want. You can mix and match the printings that you want. As long as you own 4 of that card, 4 of that Arid Mesa, for example, you can use 4 of the special guest. You can use 4 of the old version, however you like to mix and match. That's awesome. And they make an example from Opt, for example, where the Strixhaven Mystical Archive, like, I know I went for the Mystical Archive Ops, and those are the ones I've always been using. But if you only got, 1 of that and 3 of the others,
right,
you don't have all the wild cards in the world, well, now you can use the cool version, essentially, on them. And I think that's just brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's a long overdue change. I think that in terms of, where Arena's bread is buttered, cosmetics and different types of prints is where it's at. And so giving people the ability to play with their cosmetics without needing to collect 4 like you would in real life, I think is a huge boon and is going to attract people to those odd printings.
I think another thing too is it helps out, and they talk about that later in the article, but it does help out with their duplicate protection as well. Right. Yeah. So you already have 4, you got your 1 copy, boom, you're good. And I think that helps fill out sets and other stuff a little bit faster for people. So yeah, overall, a real positive announcement, honestly.
Yeah, they had, there was interesting, their example on that, for example, the duplicates thing was, if you had the Mina Harker, what was it, the Dracula printing of Thalia Garden of Thraben, well, this card style was bound to the Crimson Vow printing of Thalia. If you wanted all 4 copies to use that, you need 4 copies of the default frame from Innistrad Crimson Vow. If you didn't, you had to go, cash them in just so you get your 4 versions of Mina Harker when you got 1 million copies of Thalia. But what the hell's going on? So they actually called this the Thalia problem, which was kind of neat. And then they allowed you to just say, hey, if you've got all of the copies across all these different sets, you're good. You can use that one style for all of them, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
And the last bit is the crafting using the lowest arena rarity. This is actually really impressive. They did not, again, in any way need to do this, but they did it. So, for example, Goreclaw Terror of Calm Sisma was a rare in M19, but was an uncommon in Pioneer Masters. And if you try to craft them, it's going to default to crafting your uncommon wild cards and not your rare wild cards. That's amazing. Seriously. Okay. This is awesome. This is 100% pro, Magic player. Nothing bad about this. All of this is great. I think it's fantastic. And the fact that they do better pre-constructed deck discounts, because that was weird. You would see some pre-cons in the store and they would have like these gem values and be like, why? I've got this whole deck in my collection. Well, you didn't have that specific printing of that card in your collection. You know what I mean? And so then people are buying these things going, wait a minute, I just rebought these 2 rares I've already got. They're going to fix that. And that, again, is just a huge improvement. This is a whole giant article of it's better to be a Magic Arena player now than it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've been getting better about that because I've noticed when stuff's been available, I'll go into the shop and there might be like 2 things in there. And it's just like, oh, you already have all these other things, like, which is nice. So it's like, oh, some days there's nothing in the shop. Some days there's 5 things in the shop. Just depends on what your collection already has. So this is overall really just, hey, let's make some better quality of life things for the players.
Right.
And I'd assume none of these, from the sound of them, really make them any more money. This is literally just, hopefully it's long-term money because the players are happier.
Right. Well, they make money by more people playing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I think that's the
right. But when you're sitting here, like this whole article, when you're sitting here like in a boardroom and there's the suits, who are like, okay, so how does this make us more money? And you go, it makes the players happier. You know what I mean? Like, and higher satisfaction leads to so-and-so sales, we guess. You know what I mean? Like, it's really difficult to draw that line. And so it's awesome that this all got through. Not just one part of it, all of it. I think that was great, and I wanted to call that out. So kudos to the Arena team. You guys have been killing it. All right, let's move on here out of the first pick to Gather the Townsfolk. Thanks to our sponsor, Mana Traders, the best tool to enhance your Magic Online experience. Use the code MagicMikes_54P, that's 54Paul, for 10% off your next subscription with Mana Traders. As we move to Gather the Townsfolk, where we talk about stuff in the community, I wanted to call out, and look, I don't know if it's just me, man, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I've been seeing like new Final Fantasy cards, and I am sometimes wondering, I'm like, oh, this was like spoiled in German, or this was spoiled in like Portuguese, because what's a Zenos ye Galvus? I don't know what that is. It's a character that's from Final Fantasy, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But yeah, there's crazy names on these new Final Fantasy cards.
Yeah, I'm not enough of a Final Fantasy aficionado to know what the deal is here, but I definitely had the same. Like I read the name and was like, I need an English translation, and then I started reading the card and it was in English. You know, I think that there was a what's her name, Benavides, that goes infinite with Undergrowth Walker. I had the same vibe there. And you know, it'll take some getting used to. I don't know enough about the lore to know what the Assassin's Creed guys are all about, and enough of the Final Fantasy folks with all of the different languages. At least with Lord of the Rings, I had read Lord of the Rings, you know?
I think for me, what's funny isn't really the names, but the artwork. Like it's still so definitively Final Fantasy on a lot of stuff. So they almost look like, you know, you got an artist proxy, basically like draw your favorite Final Fantasy character on them. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, obviously, if people are coming in for the game, you want it to be recognizable to the people that are super fans. But credit to them for getting all the right artists to help you capture those looks.
Yeah, this card is really interesting. Zenos Yay Galvus is a 2 black, 3 generic mana, 4/4 rare legendary human noble warrior with the ability, sort of the call out. I don't know, how do they call it? Some sort of special keyword of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My sort first like friend.
Yeah.
Like an action word or something. Anyway, when Zenos Yay Galvus enters, you choose a creature an opponent controls. Until end of turn, creatures other than Zenos and the chosen creature get -2/-2. And when the chosen creature leaves the battlefield, you transform it into Shinryu Transcendent Rival. This is a 8/8 flyer, and when it transforms into Shinryu, you choose an opponent. This is obviously thinking of a multiplayer game, and it says when the chosen player loses the game, you win the game. Let's go. This is a standard player, by the way.
Well, hold on. When the chosen player loses it goes on the stack. Okay. I was going to say, I couldn't choose myself.
No, you choose somebody else. When that player loses, you win.
Yeah.
Yeah, you choose an opponent. Yes.
Yeah. I thought that there was some weird, like, glitch scenario where I could choose myself. Weird. Weird is what I have to say about that card.
Yeah, Black got another good card. Go figure.
Sure. It's bizarre. That is ultimately a bizarre card.
It's a weird card to kind of.
I'm just about just the give things -2/-2 blah blah blah. Like, you know, that's
too
solid on a sizable 4/4 body
for sure.
Yeah.
Ruben, you almost scooch to your right a little bit.
Sorry, I was leaning back. I was comfortable.
It's all good. Getting a little too lean on that one.
Yeah.
But this is the part where it's a standard set, but. So it's not a commander-based set, but they're going to be commander-based cards because it's the most popular format. So you're going to see a lot of these cards that they read multiplayer friendly, but we've had these in standard before. It's not crazy. It's just, it reads a little silly in some ways.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see this card get a little bit of standard play, though.
I was just going to say. If
token decks are a big thing or whatever, like, this could totally be playable.
This is already, this is already a Dirkwood board that deals damage. Or not deals damage. It's a Dirkwood board that kills something. And then it becomes an 8/8 flyer. Yeah. So we're good.
Right. And, it's the idea that you can, again, the chosen creatures has to leave the battlefield. There's also that. You can bounce it. You can blink it. Right. You can do all sorts of things with it. As long as it leaves the battlefield, boom, you got an 8/8 flyer. And that's pretty scary in and of itself. I'll take that. But there's tons of cards it looks like that this is happening for in Final Fantasy. And transformation, just like in Gothic Horror, is huge in Final Fantasy. Of this person turns into this thing, or this spell turns into this person, or whatever. So there's lots of these double-face cards coming down the pike, including a bunch of the big bad guys coming this weekend, I believe, from PAX.
Yes. We've seen a few of the spoiler preview kind of cards that will be officially fully previewed at PAX, but we've seen some of the images already, and one of them is going to be the Flip Sephiroth, which I think is going to be one of the more hyped characters and cards in the set.
Oh heck yeah! We've got, and I'll bring some of them on the screen here because it's a little bit of a slow news week. All right, y'all. But we have Kefka Court Mage. Kefka, of course, is awesome, along with Kefka Ruler of Ruin, which I love, and Sephiroth Fabled Soldier and Sephiroth One-Winged Angel, which is also fantastic. At least the artwork, I think this is gorgeous. So.
I like that they're doing flip cards here. I remember during the development of Theros, the developers of Theros noted that often in stories of heroes versus monsters, the hero has a regular progression up that where they become more and more and more powerful over the course of a fight, and the monster has one big level up moment in the fight. When you think about the Hydra, or you think about the Cerberus, or you think about the Bull in Hercules's 12 Trials. And that's how they came up with the heroic mechanic, which is a regular occurrence, and the monstrous mechanic, which is a one-time big splashy effect. But now we have flip cards, and that lets us tell twice as much story because we have twice as much real estate. So I think it makes a ton of sense to put these big villains on flip cards that show us leveling up and changing in some real way. And with twice as much art.
And they're using like killer artists. This is Yoshitaka Amano.
Yes.
As well as Nomura. And yeah, these are some huge artists these are brand new artworks as well. This isn't stuff they took from like the Final Fantasy card game from a few years ago. Like this is all new stuff, which is another big selling point, of course, for the set. And again, having worked on this thing for 5 years, I can believe it, but it also lets us get stuff like incredible artwork for these cards, which is fantastic.
So this gives me hope. Like when we talked about it before for the Marvel sets, like, man, if you can go get some of those old school Marvel artists or ex-Marvel artists, man.
Sure. Don't remind me of what I'm going to have to suffer through when Spider-Man shows up and we get a bunch of, Spooter Jaces, and I just can't.
Sure.
I just don't really like any of it.
That's right.
Sad. All right. One of y'all tell me about MagicCon Atlanta.
Well, MagicCon Atlanta is on the horizon, and I hope you're going. It's the closest one that'll be to your house in quite a while.
That's at least somewhat driving distance for you.
Yeah, that's driving distance for you, Evan.
Yeah.
Maybe we can convince you to come out. For those of you who are content creators, you should be filling out your content creation applications soon. Those are closing Friday, I want to say. And then early bird badges are on sale until next Friday, or
they go on sale next Friday.
They go on sale next Friday, and then the event itself, which is of course the Edge of Eternity Pro Tour, as well as the release of that Marvel set you were talking about, is going to be September 26th, 27th, and 28th in Atlanta. And so that's going to be a very fun time. Lots of content creators down there. It's an easy city to get to thanks to Hartsfield Jackson International Airport. And I'm looking forward to it. I will be thinking about it once Vegas is over, but it's good to have it on the horizon, on the edge of eternity.
Two things. One, because it comes up every set where people complain about how expensive the Black Lotus VIP packages are.
Sure.
Because they're 900 early bird, 1,000 regular.
Eesh.
But they sell out in like 30 minutes or something.
Right.
They sell it every time.
So I would argue they don't cost enough. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want them to be more, but there's an argument to be made that they could be at least 30% more because they sell out in 30 minutes.
My man is making the Disney World, equation happen right here, which is
but it's true though, man. It's just like
more expensive.
Yeah.
If they're getting it, and it's one of those things you're never going to have a lot available of because it's a VIP thing, right? You don't want there to be 5,000 of them or whatever because then it's not special, right? So it's always going to sell out and be expensive. But coming back to Ruben's point, I do honestly feel that if you're a content creator of any level, if you're starting out, if you're experienced, if you're looking to make deals with vendors, if you're wanting to do a speaker panel to expose your brand or your show or whatever to people, it's worth doing and worth filling out the paperwork. Now, you still have to pay your way there and whatever, but you at least get your badge for the weekend, which is what, like $60, $100, something like that. So you're still saving yourself some money.
$100.
Yeah. So it's still a reasonable amount of money, but it's more for the experience, the connections, brand building, all that. Like, and if anything, I would tell you, don't make the mistake of showing up and just playing cards for the weekend.
Yeah.
Do your business. Right. I can't count the number of people, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus because I could probably name 10 or 12 people, but I've seen them show up. They've complained about, I'm struggling, or my content's not doing as well or whatever. And I only saw them playing cards all weekend. Like all they talked about is all the games they played all weekend. And I tell them, look around at the people who you consider are doing well. And they're spending a lot of time talking to fans, signing stuff, doing meet and greets. talking to other creators. They're going to dinners with other folks and discussing business. Like there's a lot of stuff happening because you have everybody business wise, even, you know, a bunch of the major vendors, brands, whatever, all under one roof for a weekend.
Yeah.
You know, that only happens 3-4 times a year.
It's incredibly important to treat this as a networking event if you're a content creator. Our audience is a higher percentage of creators and people who work in the creator space than the normal viewing audience. And so I think it's worth taking the moment here to focus on this, which is if you are hoping to get a sponsorship, if you're hoping to get your name on a website as it relates to content, if you're hoping to make more connections to be able to bring more people onto your show or to go onto their shows, to, you know, play more Commander on people's shows or do more interviews or have any sort of analysis, it's worth just showing up. Take it from me, guy who doesn't make his own content. I'm a co-host on this show, and then I guest every once in a while on some other stuff. But I don't really make my own YouTube videos. I don't really make my own stuff. And yet, when I went to Chicago, I did nothing but network. I did nothing but hang out in the creator area and then go to dinners and try to have conversations with people who are, you know, willing to participate in media and content with me. And that led to me becoming an ambassador for Tarkir Dragonstorm. And that led to me going and continuing to apply. And I'm working on things behind the scenes with other creators to make new stuff for the future that maybe someday will happen. And those wouldn't have occurred if my sister didn't live in Chicago. And I wasn't encouraged by you guys to apply for the thing. So thank you guys for that. But also now I'm back on this path. And so if you're on that path in any reasonable way, much less if you're one of the 3 co-hosts of this show, you should absolutely be prioritizing business lunches and conversations and maybe trying to schedule an appointment with some of the people you want to talk to. So it's a incredible opportunity. It's also a fun event. Like, it doesn't have to just be a business call.
Oh yeah.
But, you know, we enjoy it. We love that stuff.
But, you know,
so for us, that is the fun stuff.
I would say even for just non-creators, though, like everyone now has, I think, 40 plus artists available. So you can look at their list if you want to get stuff signed or get playmat artwork done or whatever. I would recommend where you can contact them ahead of time because the lines are insane for these guys. Like some of these people's lines are getting cut off. Like the lines start at 10, they're cut off at 11:30 because they just know that line's still going to take another 3-4 hours to get done. And to the point that a lot of artists are bringing help to sell all the merch and whatever, and all they're doing is socializing and signing stuff for 5 hours straight, right? Like it's crazy. Same thing with vendors, right? You could set up to have stuff delivered on site. If you need to sell high-end stuff, you can make appointments, whatever. And then if you just want to meet creators, I would say realistically, of the top tier of creators that you probably watch, probably better than 75-80% of them are going to be in the room.
Yeah.
So there's a chance for you to meet all these people that you've been watching, listening to, whatever. It's you know, it's a rare experience that you only get 3 or 4 times a year, again, while everybody's under one roof, and it's worth going to if you're in the area.
Yeah, it's an experience, and you know, it's also one of those things where I'll understand that it can be a bit daunting, particularly those who have some social anxiety and whatnot. You know, and don't feel too pressured about it. You know, because a lot of times it's just sort of, at least in my experience, a lot of times it was just sort of a natural thing where you saw so and so, and you saw such and such, and you walk down the hallway. You know what I mean? And because everyone's kind of there, you just kind of stumble into all these things. And whether if you're a fan, you're going to see all these creators that you like. And if you're a creator, you're going to see all these other creators that you like look up to and that you watch their stuff. And you're like, hey, you did a really great job doing so and so, and that just creates more conversation, which then leads to things like the dinners and the lunches and so on. And you kind of just, you know, you advance yourself from there. And it's one of those where you kind of need to be there if you want to have that type of acceleration, is the way I would put it.
Yeah.
So that's a whole thing. We didn't have officially in the notes Ristic Studies' new video, but he does have a new one on an Ornithopter cube. Obviously, it's brilliant because it's Ristic Studies, so go check that out. No worries about that. We did want to call out here one Maria Bartholdi, who had major surgery for endometriosis, and obviously that sucks, but getting that taken care of is also very important. Period pain's not normal, and so get that stuff checked and let her help you just move some of that forward if you're having that kind of issue, because Lord knows no one wants to suffer like that.
Yeah, man, Maria is honestly, like if we have a gold standard for commentary, personalities, whatever, like she's definitely up there. Like
Yeah.
she deserves whatever support people want to send her way. Like I honestly, having gotten to work with her a couple of times, I seriously look and go like, all right, this is what the goal is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I want to be this good, this is what it looks like. Like
Yep.
so yeah, I don't think people appreciate her enough. And totally endometriosis sucks. I know several women who have been through it, had to have surgeries to have various things removed or cut out or whatever. So yeah, it's not a fun time. You're gonna be down for a couple of weeks afterwards or whatever. It's a whole mess, but hope she recovers quickly from it and it solves her problem.
And I had no idea. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that chronic fatigue is something that I suffer from, and endometriosis I know that's one of the side effects of it. And it is not as debilitating as the excruciating pain or as the surgical recovery, but it's debilitating. It's still an issue of you can't do as much. You simply cannot do as much. And so it is worth getting fixed, and I'm glad that she did, and wish her nothing but the best.
Well, I was reading through some of the comments, of course, and then I was surprised that they're making Endometriosis the musical, co-written by Maria.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, from June 20th to July 13th.
Okay.
Which is going to be awesome. Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. There's tickets go on sale in 6 days on May 13th, which I thought was brilliant. I got it up here on the screen. You can go to theaterintheround.org, which is brilliant. And so to be able to take something like that and, make fun of it, let's do something silly. Let's, get people to kind of laugh about it, or at least maybe learn some more while being entertained, is always awesome. And I love that.
Wild.
Yeah. Endometriosis the musical.
Gotta love it, man.
That's
gotta
brilliant,
love it,
man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I hope that does well, and more power to her, of course, and I hope she does well. All right. So that said here, we're going to move here, I guess, into splash damage, because we got a few more minutes to go here before we hit our general 30-minute deadline. Skype is closing up after 22 years. We talked a little bit about this in the pre-show. Discord is going to go public at some point.
Yeah.
Which makes me scared. And Discord has been a big part of this, channel of this podcast for a very long time. But as all things change, we started on Skype.
Yeah.
This podcast back in the day, I'd send a Skype link, and that's how we would get going. And then we did Google Meet for a while, and then eventually we went to Zoom and like everybody else, because it kind of just works. And isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
it's just crazy, man. Because again, like I don't know if people know if we even talked about this, but I did the first Magic podcast forever ago. I was like at this point, like 20 years ago or whatever, and we use Skype for that.
Oh yeah,
like even back then. So it's just like, how are you so far ahead of everybody? You have the technology in place. You had a pandemic that actually forced people to do more stuff online.
Yep.
You were already there. You were first to the post by a significant margin and somehow lost.
Yeah.
And not just lost badly. Like you fell off the map.
Right. Well, there's also, obviously it is whenever a business closes, especially one of this size, you have to look at the economic reasons for it. And of course, there are sales and mergers and moving around money reasons why Skype is closing now and it didn't before, and why Skype screwed the pooch when it did. But still, it is still crazy to think that Skype was the only game in town when it came to video messaging. They saw the future. They understood the future of the history of shows like ours, shows like all video-based podcasts, the New Heights podcast, news programs now use Zoom and Teams and things like this. And so it is always flabbergasting to see that. But every business eventually comes to a close. Everything eventually lives and dies. And so Skype is no different. Skype was never going to outlive us all. It never stood a chance.
No.
Also, they got bought by Microsoft, didn't they?
For billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Right.
Billions.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense anyway, because a lot of what they would have been able to do with Skype is kind of integrated and built into Teams or whatever now.
Yeah. And that's one of the main reasons why they bought Skype, was to eventually fold it into Teams.
Yeah. But they just basically made a whole separate project. And it's just, okay.
Teams didn't exist back then. You know, right?
Yeah.
And Discord didn't really exist much back then either. And those things changed stuff. And yeah, just imagine Magic Online has outlived the entirety of Skype.
That's crazy.
The entirety.
That is a thing that is a crazy sentence.
Yeah.
Because to be at like 2017, 2018, I'm like, Magic Online, it ain't gonna last, y'all.
Right.
2022, Magic Online, there's no way. Here we are, 2025, Magic Online keeps on trucking.
Here's the thing about Magic I tried to explain to somebody recently, is that most games in modern society don't even make it 5 years. Right. We have some legacy products like your World of Warcraft, Madden, whatever.
Sure.
But generally, if a game runs 5 to 7 years, that's a long time for a game. That's like the average lifespan of a Magic player.
Yeah.
Right? Like Magic's been around 30 plus years, and the time a person engages with Magic in their life generally is longer than the existence of a lot of other products we use.
Yes.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, that's a weird perspective to have to look at things in.
I mean, if you look at the best games in the history of time, chess is 1,000 years old. Poker is 100 years old. Magic the Gathering, I would put in that conversation, is 30 years old. And Go, I guess, is another one that's on that list. Sure. I think that Magic is the best game that's been invented in the last 50 years. And I don't think I'm alone in that assessment. And there's not a lot of games that have, like you said, a longer lifespan than 5, much less 10, 20, 30 years. And so the proof is in the pudding there. That's how good of a game it is.
Yeah. And it's it just kind of keeps going. I mean, there's definitely,
and someday it'll die, and that's a sad fact.
At some point, maybe a lot longer in the future than I expected. But there's definitely people who will comment on this channel every once in a while. They're just like, "Wow, Evan, you're still at it," and I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm still here. We'll never go away."
I talked to some like popular content creators in Chicago, and they were like, "Man, I used to watch Magic Mike's. I used to love it." And I was like, Magic Mike's is like the most recent thing I've done, and it's old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and we're turning 10 or whatever.
I know.
That's exciting. But that said, let's go ahead and turn the corner here to the finisher. I know, right? Mayday, Mayday. The internationally celebrated Workers' Day, Mayday, was last week. So tell me, how did you celebrate the unofficial first day of summer, Ruben?
Well, I celebrated May Day by watching the latest arc of Andor, which, if you've seen the latest arc of Andor, you know why it's May Day related. Supporting pro-union creators, and of course, dropping by my friendly local game store and playing Mono Red, as all pro workers unite. Gamers should.
Nice. Power Dragon?
Well, if you follow me on socials, you know how I feel about stuff. So I celebrated May Day by raising the voices of pro-worker politicians, decorating my front door with Mayflowers, and as always, never paying the damn one.
We're not one payers in this household on this podcast. Now, I celebrated May Day by working hard for my fans and coworkers, spending currency in exchange for goods and services, and celebrating that, if nothing else, at least Marvel Snap's economy is improving in 2025.
Yeah.
Very nice.
At least one economy is better.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And Simple's going to phase. And if you know what I'm talking about, you're into Counter-Strike. All right. And that ends another live episode of Magic Mike's. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Power Dragon.
Hey, as always, good to be here. Don't forget, give it good rating, give the reviews, all that stuff, and share the show if you like it.
We appreciate it. Thank you, Ruben.
Yeah. And support unions.
Yeah. And support your creators that you enjoy. Hopefully it'll be us. As we move on to our final slide, I want to thank our sponsor, Mana Traders, my co-host, Power Dragon and Ruben Bressler, viewers like you for watching or listening. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us on our exclusive member Discord. Subscribe to our Patreon and watch us live on Twitch. Join us live or taped on our YouTube channel. Check out our TikTok. Follow us on Blue Sky. Join us here next week. Same time, same place for another episode of Magic Mike's. Good night, everybody.